Hey Bob, how's it going?
Hey, Alex, it's great. Yeah, it's great.
Good.
It's a
Yeah,
wonderful day. It's a little rainy in North Carolina, and I love the rain.
good. Good to talk to you today. Today I wanted to go a little bit into your childhood there. It's very interesting to me when I was reading it on your profile. You mentioned that your parents were immigrants and that, you know, you were made to go to Sunday school, but there really wasn't anything behind that. What was that like and how was that whole experience for you?
Yeah. Well, mom and dad were Hungarian. Well, my dad was Hungarian royalty, and during World War I, there was the royals, I guess, took some hits, and then the Bolsheviks came in. And if you know anything about Bolsheviks and royalty, they just don't mix. So they started wiping out all my dad's relatives, and he escaped from Hungary. My mom was Roma Gypsy. And, everybody wiped out the Romas. And so by the time I came along, we literally had no ancestors. And having experienced that in their lives, they just didn't feel that there was a God that was worth worshiping. And they weren't against it. I think they both had, some Orthodox back then, the Orthodox and shamanistic, traditions that they had been taught. But with the experiences that they had, we weren't anti-religious. We were just non-religious. But my father being an immigrant and he was just very, very dedicated to becoming an American. I remember he always used to read Time magazine from cover to cover with a dictionary next to it. And every time he came across a word he didn't know, he would look it up in the dictionary. He spoke 6 languages. He was a brilliant guy. And he said to me, because being Hungarian, he sounded like Count Dracula from
Oh,
the movies. he goes, he goes, we are Americans, and you must know the Bible stories, because if you are an American, you must know the Bible stories. So you have to go to Sunday school. So he would ship me off to Sunday school, and not growing up with any kind of basis of believing in any kind of spiritual creature or supernatural creature, gods, angels, demons, things like that. Just all of the stories they told me, they sounded very much like Disney. I mean, this
mm.
big ark that took all the animals and the dress. The way that they present it in children's Sunday school is like, like Sesame Street. Except there was just one thing that they ever. No, we went to many different ones because at one point we were on the road in a carnival, and we went to many different Sunday schools. But the one consistent thing that I remember that I was taught was that up there somewhere, and I don't know what up there really meant. I didn't quite understand that. But there was this guy, and this guy loved me. And being Eastern European and my mother having some weird traditions, praise and pats on the back of the head were not really part. Doing the job right, that should be your pat on the head, was my
Mm.
father's way. You should get satisfaction from doing the job correctly. So, but in my times when I was really looking for a pat on the head as a kid, I knew that there was this guy that loved me. And I think that that has sustained me through much of my life, even though I wasn't Christian and I didn't even understand much about Jesus Christ. I did, was attracted to him. I did learn more about him. I learned more about his teachings. Later on in my life, only 25 years ago, I'm 75 now, so when I was 50, I met and married my second wife, who is a born again Bible literalist Southern Baptist.
Okay, so when you were a child, like how long were you in Sunday school for? Like how long were you like actually studying this stuff for?
Oh, just in and out. I
Oh,
mean,
in and
nothing.
out. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I say, we were in a carnival, so we travel from town to town. So I go into this Sunday school this time and another one next time. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So it wasn't anything definitive. It wasn't like a training of any kind. It
Right,
was
right.
just
So
an
it
exposure
sounds like
more.
you had like a more like a superficial kind of just
Yeah,
going through the motions. Yeah.
yeah. And like I say, so that's the only thing that really stuck with me. And so we kind of settled down when I was 10, and my father found his way through to the American dream through popcorn. And he was in Ellis Island. And so we were the popcorn cotton candy stand in the carnival, and then in an amusement park. And then by the time I was going to middle school, he was doing comfortably enough so that the winters we would go to Florida and do the county fairs and stuff like that. And that's where I really started going to school on a regular basis, not, carnival school. And so I grew up, and then my biggest ambition in life was to sell enough hot dogs on the boardwalk in Rockaway, Queens, New York to not have to work in the winter. That was my biggest ambition. But I was a football player. I was a big boy and got a lot of bullying as a result of that. But I found that my big body had a purpose, and that was being a linesman, football linesman. So I went to Boston University. But then I broke my ankle, and I want to give you the year here. We're talking 1970, height of the Vietnamese hippie days, right? So what does a jock do when they're no longer a jock in 1970? They become a hippie. What else could you do? There's only two different ways to be, a jock or a hippie. And so I grew my hair out, and I had John Lennon sunglasses, and I was wearing a tuxedo with a tie-dyed T-shirt and a top hat, and had my hair out to here, my beard down to there, and like that. And I just didn't expect to do anything except have a good time, party, and sell hot dogs. And there was this one guy who kept telling me I should be a lawyer. His name was John Berman. And we were living in this hippy-dippy apartment, and you never knew who was going to be in what room and in whose bed on any particular night, those free love days, you know. And John disappeared for a couple of weeks, and then he comes back, and he hands me this envelope, and inside the envelope is a postal money order, uncashable, made out to the Educational Testing Service for $350, which was the price of admission to the law school aptitude test. He said, I'm telling you, you should be a lawyer, go to law school, go take this test. And I said, well, go cash it. He says, I can't. It's not refundable. Only the Educational Testing Service can cash it.
So where did this check come from?
He went out, got a job, earned the money, bought the thing, and then quit the job.
Okay. So he was going to go be a lawyer.
No, he gave me the check.
It was just to give for you.
Just to give me, said, you should be a lawyer. Go take the test. How do you say no? How could I say no to that? So I took the test, and I did it. I really don't know who was guiding my hand, but I did incredibly well. And my college career was really mediocre. And one law school took a chance on me. They weren't even accredited yet. I was in the first class. They were accredited by the time I graduated. So I went to law school. And it wasn't until we got to law school and all these new starry-eyed law students who no other law school would take, all of us, a bunch of rejects and almost and wannabes. Everybody was going around saying, like, what kind of a lawyer do you want to be? And I didn't have a clue. So when they came to me, I said, I want to be a judge. Why not? When I said that, Alex, it was something just came over me, and I said, oh my, I might actually amount to something. There might be a purpose and a function in my life to do something. So in my third year of law school, we had the opportunity to intern in various public offices. So I interned in the Miami-Dade District Attorney's Office, which was being run by Janet Reno, which some of your older audience may recognize that name.
Oh, I recognize that name.
So she was my boss, and she was a credible lady. And by the time, and I was lucky enough to be assigned to a felony trial division as an intern. And usually you get to do all of the side things like little hearings and stuff like that. But my supervising attorney was really cool, and he let me try 2 felony trials while I was still in law school.
Oh my goodness. Of course, so you got the experience very fast.
Of course, both of these cases were dead rung losers. I mean, they had to be tried, and they were dead losers. And I lost both of them, but I had 2 trials under my belt by the time I graduated. And so when I graduated and they hired me, I went straight into the felony division. And that's usually 3 years of career building to get there. So I had this 3-year jump, which was like just amazing. And very quickly, I moved up to major crimes and supervision, leadership and the like, and got to the economic crimes and consumer frauds division. And now give you the year, we're talking like early 70s. So what is it? Cocaine Cowboys, Scarface, Miami Vice, all that stuff, all the Colombian craziness and the cartels and, all the speedboats and Bimini, all that stuff is going on. And we hit the mob up for over $70 million on a civil racketeering charge. And shortly thereafter, I left the office, and a couple of weeks, maybe, afterwards, I call him Johnny, comes walking straight into my office, walks past my secretary, walks straight into my office, sits down in front of me. I knew who he was. He was, southern leg of the Gambino family. Scared the shit out of me. Excuse me.
What did he say during that meeting?
He just sat there for first, and we're just looking at each other. And finally, he opens his mouth. I'll never forget. He opens his mouth. He goes, you hit us for a lot of money. I go, yes, sir. He goes, you got to be good. We got good lawyers. You got to be good. Thank you. He says, we want to send you some clients. So I became a referral source. They became a referral source for clients. And all these clients would walk into my office with $9,000 in cash. They just give me this bag, brown paper bag with $9,000. Because $10,000 you have to report to the feds. If it's $10,000 in cash, you got to report it.
So were you representing them, like going after them, or were you like representing them on their side?
No, they would send me the mules, the carriers,
Okay.
the dealers, the people down the ladder from them. They would, let's say a mule, gets busted, bring in, some crack into Miami, or somebody is distributing, a pound of cocaine to somebody else and they get popped. So they show up at my door with $9,000 in cash, but they never tell me who sent them. But I know who sent them. And so they just had it was just one after the other. They just kept walking in the door. I'm making money heads over foot. And I'm palling around with these guys and thinking I'm the, cat's meow. I'm so cool and I'm invulnerable. And quite frankly, my behaviors became quite excessive. I'm doing a lot of cocaine. I'm doing a lot of other stuff with them. And somehow I'm keeping my professional life together because we had an arrangement that I wasn't going to do anything illegal or unethical because it was in their best interest to have a reliable, trusted lawyer representing them in court, somebody that the court trusted.
Yes.
And so they agreed, and we all understood each other. But I was coming home at midnight and leaving the house at 4, not spending any time with my family, and everything was falling apart on that end. Although my story is a little bit unusual in the facts of it, the I guess the wave of it is so really common. What happens? People think they're the greatest thing in the world. They're arrogant as hell. And then they start to hit bottom and they start saying, I need some help. So I was seeing a therapist. And one day, I'm spending the money as fast as I'm making it. And I had already paid my house off by the time I was 32. And I was looking at having to refinance the house to pay for a business that I had invested in that went bust. And I said to George, should I refinance the house? And I expected him to say something like, therapeutic, like, well, Bob, do you think that you should refinance your house? But he didn't. He picked up 3 coins. And he shook the coins in his hand. He dropped them on a table and he made some mathematical computations and he came up with a number, and then he reached behind him, got this big old book and opened it up to that number. And he showed me the chapter name, and the chapter name was Retreat. And I cursed him out because I thought that he had become some kind of soothsayer, tarot card reader or something like that, and walked out. It was like that word got like tattooed on my irises, like everywhere I looked, it was just retreat, 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 retreat. And so I pulled back from a lot of those excessive behaviors and started to pay off my debts and watch what I was spending my money on. Within a few that was what I started doing, but I went back to him a couple of weeks later. I said, George, I know you. You're a good therapist. Well, what are you doing throwing coins? What was that all about? And he said, well, Bob, that was the I Ching.
Yeah.
And I go, what's that? And he goes, it's a Taoist practice. And I said, what's Taoism? He says, it's a system of virtue. It is a blueprint for how to live life. I said, you mean like a religion? He goes, yeah, I don't know. It's not really got a God in it, so there's no angels, so you don't have to worry about it, because he knew who I was. But turned out that he was the English language editor and devotee and primary student of Watching Ni. Dig this, a 72nd generation Taoist Grandmaster from the Shaolin Temple. 72 generations, father to son, 1,400 years.
Right. I read a little bit on his bio. Was he in Miami at that time, the master, or was he in California?
No, he was in California, but he
Right.
came to Miami and other outposts
Oh,
where
I
he
see.
was
Got it.
establishing Taoist centers. And so he would come almost monthly to Miami, and we would meet with him, this little group. And during the rest of the month, George would lead us in practices, and we always had an open line of communication. And so he taught us Taoist practices. And those are, I got to tell you, Alex, I really deeply believe that the lessons of the Tao, the way of living of the Tao that it lays out, is truly a system of living for these times,
A system
because
of living for these times.
for these times, because the fastest growing denomination in the United States are nuns. People that say, when they're asked what's their religious affiliation, say none.
Oh,
That is the
got it.
fastest
Yeah.
growing denomination in this country. People cannot keep up with religion so much because they can't buy the science. They're asked my way or the highway exclusivity. People don't like it. Idea of burning in eternal hell, and then just so many ideas. The earth being 4,000 years old. There are so many things that people just can't abide by, and especially a lot of the exclusivity that people, and the church, not necessarily religion, but the church has injured and harmed a great many people, especially in the LGBTQ
Yeah.
community and other marginalized people. So many people have left the church, and in doing that, they also lost their connection to the divine, however you might define that. And so on Sundays, they're mowing their lawn or doing things, and kids are growing up without any particular spiritual or virtuous, let me use the word virtuous, teaching. And we're getting unbalanced. And
So,
so this was a teaching that I could accept because it is nothing but pure wisdom. And when I say
oh,
pure
okay,
wisdom,
understood.
what do I mean? Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is the seminal book of Taoism, it's 81 chapters, one page chapters, very pithy, very dense. But he'll say things like, if he's talking about leadership, he says, be careful about leadership and only step up if you are called and have no other choice but to avoid it. But once you step up, give it everything you have. And the moment your work is done, step down. And that way your work will endure. But if you stay on after your work is done, after you have completed the task that you have been asked to lead, if you stay on after that, then it becomes a personality thing. And personalities are always subject to conditions and to attack. But your work, if it's important to you, will live on. You have to let it go. That's really good advice, things like that.
I think that the I Ching is not really that well known
Mm-mm.
in the West. I've read and listened to the works of Wayne Dyer, and he talks about that a lot.
Uh-huh. Yes, he does.
However, the I Ching, it's just there's this mystification
Mm-hmm.
around it. So, like, in your own words, what is it? Like, how would you explain it to a layman like me?
Okay. So, Carl Jung, the famous Austrian psychologist, was very taken with the I Ching, and he studied it at great length, and he has written perhaps some of the best explanations of what the I Ching does. First of all, if you randomly read any section from the I Ching, it's nothing but advice on living life. That's all it is. It doesn't tell you this or that. That's all. You could pick it up randomly and just read a passage, and there's nothing objectionable to it, and it's all good advice. And it's 4,000 years old, so it's been curated, it's been edited, and the like. What Carl Jung said about the I Ching, well, first of all, you are right about the fact that it seems like it's a divination and there's a lot of mysticism to it because it did arise out of the shamanistic traditions of rural China. But before I get into it, let me give you one example so we kind of get on the same page. One of my mentors, Judge Kogan, I once asked him how come everybody else's courtroom seemed to be overflowing and packed and his always seemed to be going along smoothly. And he said that it's a question of timing. He said, if you try to pick an apple before it's ripe or try to bring a case to trial before it's ready, because, you just don't want to take any guff from the lawyers, then you may have to do it over. If you take the apple before it's ripe, you have to twist and pull and yank and turn, and it takes a lot of effort. And when you get it, it's sour. If you wait too long, it drops and rots. But if you pick it just right, it comes off easy and it's sweet. So in that little lesson, we understand the importance of timing, of what is how effective and efficient and how little energy is necessary to accomplish the goal of eating the apple when you do it in the right time.
And that's a principle
That's a
within the I
principle
Ching.
within the, it is the principle.
It is the principle.
The principle. The other principle is you're out in the sea and you want to swim into shore and you just panic and flail about and die. That's not going to get you there. The other is you just get it in your head, I got to get to shore, and you just swim in that direction. Now, you'll get to shore, but you're going to be exhausted. The other way of doing it, the third way, the I Ching way, is to notice that sometimes the water is going out to sea and sometimes it's going towards the shore. So while it's going towards the shore, if I align myself with that and I swim like hell when it's going towards the shore, but then when it's going away and it's going out to sea, well, I don't want to waste my energy fighting it, but I don't want to let it take me out to sea, so I'm going to put out just enough energy to hold my place. Then when it turns around and changes and goes in, I'm going to swim like hell. Then I'm going to hold. Then I'm going to swim like hell. Then I'm going to hold. That way, when I get to shore, I've used the least amount of energy necessary to accomplish the desired result.
Not going against the greater energies of what's around you and what it wants a particular thing to happen in a particular direction.
Right.
That's so opposite of the mentality that we're taught in schools to like work hard and put your nose to the grindstone and no matter what, just push through. That's so opposite to that.
So opposite. We asked Master Ni once, why do they call you master? He said, because I've mastered life, of course. And we said, what does it mean to master life? He says, when you can interfere with the natural flow of things the least and expend the smallest amount of energy while accomplishing the desired result, you have begun to master life. So, in other words, like the thing with the apple, you got to have the patience to let the apple ripen. Well, what we do is we got to get as many apples as we can, and we'll just get those apples. Just get the apples. But if you're not getting ripe apples, you're doing a lot of wasted energy. Or you have to sit and let them wait and ripen on their own off the branch and waste other resources in allowing them. Why not just leave them on the tree, which is already taking care of them? Don't interfere with the natural flow of things. Wait until it's time and then exert the small amount of energy. And that way you live life effectively and efficiently. And so the basic teaching of Taoism is how to live life effectively and efficiently by learning to going with the flow, but you have to understand the nature of the flow.
How does one do that?
Practice the I Ching.
And how do you practice the I Ching?
Aha! That's where Carl Jung comes in. Okay, so this is what Carl Jung says. Carl Jung says that we have, and everybody agrees, that we have our right side, which is rational, word, language, based, fight, flight, sympathetic nervous systems over on the right. On the left, we have intuition, action, spirituality, rest and digest, parasympathetic nervous system, awe, beauty, and the like. It's over here. In the West, we really focus on the right. We focus on overcoming danger and overcoming obstacles and pushing ahead and march, march, march. John Philip Sousa. And over on the East, the idea is to wait till things are ready and then do it. Do what you need to do. If you're going down a river and it's smooth, the flow, you're going with the flow, all you need to do is rest and give a little bit of steerage so you don't run up on a rock. But when the white water comes, you have to be much more alert. And if you're heading for a waterfall, you have to take some severe measures. There are times to rest. There are times to take attention, be attentive. There are times to take urgent measures. You have to be aware of the energy of the flow around you and then align yourself with it. So how do you do that? So what Carl Jung said is the I Ching cuts those different times, a time to retreat, a time to move forward, a time to punch through, a time for calculated waiting, cuts it into 64 pie slices. And each of those 64 pie slices has 6 sub-slices. Now you say, how can I learn all that? You're blinking your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. Well, you don't learn it all at once. You don't study it. You practice it. you take a little bit of a chunk of it, a little tiny piece of it once a day as a little piece of advice. And over time, you get to embody the knowledge. You practice it just like you practice tennis. I mean, if I told you that, you had to go on a championship tennis match tomorrow, you'd blink your eyes, right? But if I say, no, tomorrow, learn what a forehand is and how to hold the racket.
So for a total beginner,
Right.
someone just ordered the book off of Amazon, is
hmm
trying to read through it, how would you guide this beginner to practice it every day? Like, just open up a page and just start reading it, or how would they
I
do that?
would I would teach them the practice, and we'll do that in a minute. But let me just finish with Jung.
Okay.
So what Jung said was, what the I Ching practice does is this. You ask yourself a question, and the question can't be a yes or no answer. It can't be like, will my fiance say yes when I propose? What you have to do is ask a question like this. What do I need to know about asking my fiance to marry me? What do I need to know about that?
Okay.
Okay. To ask a question saying, will she do that, already assumes that you're going to ask her. And maybe that's already one bridge too far. So we don't want to make any assumptions. You just have to be a little bit, open and open your mind. What do I need to know about the interview I'm going to have later today? What do I need to know about this day? What do I need to know about shopping for the group? What do I need to know about anything that I want to do? But you ask the question that's most prevalent on your mind, and then you occupy your rational, your right side, with a mathematical process. Back in the old day, they used to have 42 yarrow sticks, and they would drop them, and they would have to make these real complicated mathematical computations. We've simplified it a bit. But you occupy your rational mind with math. Meanwhile, your intuitive mind is working on the question. And Alex, the answer to all of these questions, if you really stop and admit it, you already know the answer.
Deep
You
down
really,
inside.
Deep down inside, you
Yes.
already know the answer. Now, the question is, how do we get that answer out from deep down inside and then put it into a usable format? And that's where the I Ching comes in, because when you throw the coins, get your rational mind out of the way by occupying it with math, let your intuitive mind work on the problem. Now it's anxious to get that over to your rational mind. So you need some kind of bridge. So when you throw the coins and do the math, it'll tell you to make certain readings. It'll direct you. Read chapter 32, then read these two sentences, and then read chapter 47.
I see. So then
Okay?
step one is you set an intention with a broad question. What do I
Right,
need to know about blank?
right,
And then the second step is to do the math where you throw the sticks and it gives you the calculation to like go to what page and what to
right,
study.
right.
Got it. Okay.
And then you go and do the reading, and what will happen is that answer that you already know deep inside will cause you to select phrases and words that seem to be more meaningful and relatable, and that you're responsive to as you're doing the reading. So you will piece together the answer that you already have, but you'll piece it together in words rather than in a hunch. And so it makes your hunch practicable, because now you have it in your rational mind, and your rational mind is the workhorse. Your intuitive mind is the thinker and the stargazer.
So do you always have to come to the book with a question in mind already? Like, is that always part of the process or equation?
If you don't ask it the question, it will answer the question that you actually have on your mind anyway,
Okay.
because it's you.
Okay.
It's not something foreign. If you come to it and you're doing it, you already know that there's something that you're looking for, and you already have the answer. So it's not doing anything foreign or bringing in any kind of, mystical spirit or anything. It's just your own mind making it all up. So if you say, I
Oh,
don't have a
right.
question, you probably really do have a question in there. You're just not vocalizing it. and it will answer that question because it's the only question that it can answer because your mind, when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see 1,000 of those cars around. They were always there. You're just noticing them now. You're noticing them now because your mind acts like a semi-permeable membrane and only allows from all of the data that flows in, it only allows up to your consciousness that which is important to you. So when you buy a new car, that has now become important to you, a blue Mazda. So every blue Mazda that comes by, you notice because your mind allows that data up into your consciousness.
So the I Ching is kind of like a connector. It's allowing certain information or wisdom to reach you, basically.
But no, you're allowing certain
You're allowing.
information that
Yeah.
it's inputting it. You
Okay.
are sorting that information out and grabbing the pieces that you need in order for your intuitive mind to be able to create an answer for your rational mind. You're doing it,
Okay. Okay.
but it's providing the data
Right.
and you're sifting the data.
So before our call, you went and got some materials with you. Can you
Hmm.
show us what those tools are that you use?
Sure. So right now, I have 3 coins. I got 3 quarters right here. And you give an assignment of these quarters. You give an assignment to the heads and the tails. The heads have 2 points and the tails have 3 points. So if you get 3 heads, that would be 2, 4, 6, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Head, 2 point,
Two
2, 4,
each. Okay, got it. 2
2,
points
4,
versus
6.
1 point. Yeah.
If you get 3 tails, it's 9, 3, 6, 9. So the only 4 numbers that you can get is 6, 7, 8, or 9, right? So let's say you get 1 head, that's 2, and you get 2 tails. So it's 2 plus 3 plus 3, that's 3, 6, that's an 8, right? Say you get 2 heads and a tail, 2 plus 2 plus 3, that's a 7. Or you get 3 heads or you get 3 tails. Those are the only combinations.
Right. And so do you just like throw them up in the air and then 3 times each? I'm
No,
guessing.
6 times. 6 times.
Okay.
Each time you write a particular line, and you just like a building, the first line is on the bottom because you always build from the bottom up in a building.
Right.
So you're going to build what's called a hexagram or 6 lines. Okay. And each line has a different significance based on the number. And I'm going to do it. We're going to do it right now. Okay. And as I
Okay.
go through it, I'll explain it.
Do we have to ask a question first?
Well, let's have a question.
Okay. What do you think the question should be?
What do you think the question should be?
Okay. So
What do I need to know about? And it's got to be the question that's really most on your mind.
what do I need to know about this conversation with Bob and the show in general? Can it be something like that?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. I wouldn't do, or I would go one or the other. I'd say, what do I need to know about my podcast?
What do I need to know about my podcast? Okay, how about that?
Is that something that's on your mind that
Yes.
you? Okay.
Yeah, let's
So
go
the
with that.
question is, what do I need to know about my podcast? Okay. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to do this, and let's see. Let me get some more light here. Okay. I have 3 heads. Okay. So 3 heads is 2, 4, 6. 2, 4, 6 is an even number, and even is yin. Yin is characterized by a broken line. And
Okay.
because they're all the same, it's an old yin. So because they're all the same and because it's a 6, I write a broken line with a dot next to it. Now let me just explain about that what I mean. This is the yin yang. This is yang, this is yin. This is yang, and that's the dot of yin inside of yang. That's not a dot. It's a seed.
Okay.
That seed is going to blossom and it's going to grow and it's going to take over. And yang is going to become yin and yin is going to become yang. And that is the symbol of day becoming night and night becoming day. It's also a symbol of the flow of the universe. It's the reason why people in Tai Chi come back and go forward. This is yang, this is yin, yang, yin. As yang gives way, yin predominates. As yin gives way, yang predominates. As good times cycle, they become bad times. And bad times cycle become good times.
I never knew that little dot was a C, by the way.
Right?
Now
Nobody
that I
does.
look at it, that makes total sense. Otherwise, it would have just been one total black thing and one total
A
white.
total white thing.
Okay, now that makes sense.
But the symbol is that summer becomes winter, winter becomes summer. But in human dynamics, the time to retreat is followed by a time to progress. A time of calculated waiting is followed by a time of punching through. In human dynamics, the same cycle occurs, and that is the flow. So if yin yang represents the flow, we have to learn how to go with the flow. We have to learn the flow. And that's where this I Ching goes. So that's yin and yang. As I said, it's 6, it's even. That makes it yang. Yang is represented by a broken line. By the broken line, I mean this.
So as you draw it, can you show? Okay, so two lines
Okay?
next to each other.
Well, it's a broken line
A
because
broken line, yeah.
it's the female, and so that would look like a vagina.
Okay,
Okay, that is a good way to represent it.
okay,
Yang is a straight line.
okay.
It looks like a penis.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
So because this is a 6, they're 3 of a kind, we put a little dot next to it, so it looks like that.
Okay.
Okay? Because that makes it an old
Old.
makes it an old one that's gonna turn into the other one. The
Okay,
old
got it.
one turns into the other one. Okay. So that's the first line.
The foundation, the bottom one, right?
That's the bottom one, right. Now I got a tail, and a head. So that's 2 plus 3 plus 3. That's 3, 6, 3, 6, 7, 8. Again, it's an even line. So that line is going to be also a yin line. And so now we look like this.
Okay.
Okay? Let's do it again. So now I got a head, and a tail. That's 2, 4, 7. So now 7 is a yang line, and it's going to look like this.
Now the previous yin, that was not an old yin. Why was that not an old yin?
I'm sorry. That was the previous one was because it wasn't 3 of a kind.
Oh, if it's three
It
of a
was
kind, then it's
old.
old.
Then it's old.
Got it.
If
Okay.
it's 3 nines, it's an old yang. If
Okay.
it's 7, it's a young yang.
Okay.
So if it's at the top or the bottom of the existence, it's old already.
Okay.
Okay?
And this one was
So that's where
7,
we
you
are.
said?
That was 7, so that
Okay.
was a yang line, but it's not 9, so it's not an old yang, okay? Now I got a tail, and a tail. So that's 9. That is an old yang. So that's going to look like this,
Okay.
okay? So now I got a tail, and a tail. That's 9, but that is another. Did I get that? 3, 6, 9. Yeah, it's another old yang. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got one more to do.
So that one was 9.
That was 9, and so that's an old yang. And now I got a head, and a tail. So that's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's also a yang, but it's a young yang. So
Okay.
now my hexagram looks like this.
Okay.
Now, when I have this, I take the 3 old ones and I transform them into their opposites.
You transformed them.
Let me do it, and you'll understand.
Okay. I thought we were finished.
Almost. Okay. You'll see what I mean now. On the bottom, you have the same, right?
Yes.
But the second line, which was an old yin,
Oh,
is
right.
now a yang.
Right, because it's transforming.
Right.
Okay, yes, it goes back to that concept of the seed.
Right. Good concept of the seed.
Yeah.
The next one is a young yang, and it continues to be a yang. The next one is an old yang, and it turns into a yin. The next one is an old yang, it turns into a yin, and finally at the top is a young yang, which stays the same. Okay? So now I have 2 hexagrams. And the way that now I go to the chart. Okay? I go to the chart.
Okay, and you see the number it matches up with.
Yeah. Now, on this side, going down here, the lower 3 is called the lower trigram.
Yeah.
And it matches up with the upper 3, and it gives me a number that it matches those 2.
Okay.
So the first hexagram, which is from the bottom up, is yin yin yang. So if I go over here and I look for yin yin yang, I found it right there.
Okay.
See, it's called Ken. All right.
Yep.
Now the top 3 hexagrams are 3 yangs. So that is Chen. So the number of the first hexagram is 33. See?
33. Okay.
Top, You
Yeah.
see three yang lines, and if you look to the left, you see these two. So
That was
that's 33.
is that before the transformation?
That's before the
Okay,
transformation.
got it.
Now then, after the transformation, we have a yin and two yangs, a yin and two yangs. That's here. And above, we have two yins. Just make sure, yeah. And then that's it. So that one comes to 18 right
18.
there.
Okay.
Okay. That's the intersection of the top and bottom three. So that's 18. So the way that we would read this, the way that we would describe it is my reading is 33 with moving lines in the second, fourth, and fifth, transforming to 18.
So how does
That's what we would, that's how if I was a practitioner and he says, what was your reading? I said, I had 33 with moving lines in the third, fourth, and fifth, and turned into an 18. That's how we would talk.
okay.
Okay. Okay. So let's see what that says.
Okay, the practical usage of like how what do I
Okay.
do with this now?
So you got to say what I got. Retreat, retreat. Okay. Retreat will bring progress. It's advantageous to persist in small matters. Okay. And so then it goes on and it gives you what the metaphors are. What you have is you have heaven above and you have the stillness of mountains beneath. An enlightened person, therefore, keeps his distance from mean-spirited persons. He avoids exhibiting anger and maintains his dignity. The brilliance of the moon begins, like winter, this hostile and inferior force is in accordance with the patterns in the cosmos. To retreat at the proper moment is the best course of action. Choose this moment wisely. If you retreat too soon, you will not have time to properly prepare for your return. So in this sense, retreat is not giving up. It's not caving in. Retreat is a strategical, tactical place. And it may be retreating from a behavior, but it also may be retreating from a personal characteristic. So basically, it's talking about there's some pulling back that's called for in
Okay.
some way. And then, you can read through it. And as I said, this would be your reading. So if I read through this whole thing, you would pull out of it. Let me read a little bit so then you can say what you got out of it. The brilliance of the moon begins to diminish at the moment it reaches its fullness, while winter's coming becomes apparent even in the summer. The natural pattern of advance and decline is reflected now in human affairs. Just as life prepares its enduring retreat from the dark stillness of winter, just as life prepares its enduring retreat from winter. So retreat in its crazy way, you have to think of it also in terms of the fact that retreating from winter means moving towards life,
Towards spring.
towards spring,
Yes.
right? There's also that. So we really don't know what they're talking about yet. You must prepare to retreat from a rising darkness that will work at cross purposes to your aim. I know where this is going. Like winter, this hostile and inferior force is in accordance with the patterns in the cosmos. To retreat at the proper moment is the best course of action. Choose this moment wisely. If you retreat too soon, you will not have time to properly prepare your return. If you wait too long, you may be trapped. Your retreat should be confident and powerful. You're not abandoning the situation, but instead making a wise and timely withdrawal until the time is right for a counter move. Only small things may be accomplished successfully. Modest but firm arrangements should be made both to aid your return and to prevent any adversaries from advancing in your absence. So it gives you good, when you need to pull back and maybe pull back to get a breath, maybe, it's giving you some real good advice to be careful of this. You follow it so far?
Yes, I'm following. Yeah.
Okay. It is of great importance that you do not confront or struggle with opposing forces and thereby become emotionally involved in what is actually a futile situation. Vengeance and hatred will cloud your judgment and prevent the necessary retreat. You cannot win the war right now, but you can stop the enemy's advance. This is done with a determined detachment. Cut off the lines of communication, become self-sufficient, withdraw intellectually and emotionally. Okay? Now, you have some moving lines. So we go to the back of the book and we look for 33. And in 33, we have those moving lines. These are that is an over, that, what your first hexagram, may be the start of a story. It may be an overall, broad example of something, or it may be a situation which is being acted on by certain forces, and these are the forces that are acting on it.
So if you
So you
didn't have moving lines, you would not refer to the back of the book?
correct. That would be called a static hexagram, and then you just read the one and you're done.
Okay, and can you show me what those moving lines look like? What are those moving lines? How do you know those are moving lines? Or when sorry,
Oh,
on the lines that you were drawing, how do you know that they were
the
moving lines?
dots,
Oh, the dots, the old. Got it.
right?
Okay.
The dots.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So these moving lines are saying you have moving lines in the second, fourth, and fifth. So the second line, if you maintain a strong desire to retreat or align yourself with one in a position to guide you, you can make your escape.
Okay. I understand. I understand.
Fourth line, if you recognize the moment for retreat, be certain that you do so objectively. In this way, you will adjust easily and progress to your new environment. Those who are filled with emotional turmoil during withdrawal will suffer greatly.
I understand.
Fifth, make your retreat friendly but firm. Do not do not drawn into irrelevant considerations concerning your decision. A persevering withdrawal brings good fortune.
I know exactly what this is about.
Okay. Now that turns into 18. And 18 is called repair. And the judgment is repair can bring exceptional progress. It is advantageous to experience the collective flow before starting. Examine the future for 3 days. The object of your inquiry is in a state of disrepair. This may be an inherited difficulty, or it may come about because you have been unaware of a need that needs to be constantly monitored, analyzed, and attended to in the details of the situation. You cannot ignore or discount as unimportant even the smallest detail of any situation over which you wish to maintain control. All things have built in weak points, places that decay and eventually collapse. This is especially visible in human affairs. Stop now and think about it. Your problems may seem to be overwhelming, things may appear to be out of hand, yet the hexagram repair bodes great success. Though through work, you have the opportunity to totally eliminate the past indifference that has created the present uncomfortable situation. Work hard. You can see the problems clearly now. The timing is excellent for making amends. Don't be afraid to take assertive action. Outside forces do not influence the situation. Your own past attitude has allowed the damage to occur, in you uniquely equipped to repair it.
I know what this is about.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it about?
So as you know,
I
I'm
mean,
just
is it
starting
something you
this.
want to share?
Well, yeah, I'll share it.
Okay,
This just
okay.
has to do with my current employment and
Uh-huh,
moving on, retreating from that, and then
uh-huh,
moving fully into this show, other aspect of my life. It's been something that I've been working on, and we talked about not fighting the ocean earlier in the conversation. The ocean's been nudging me in a particular
mm,
direction, and
mhm,
I've been holding back. I haven't been allowing myself to go with the flow. This is about that.
mhm,
And for me, the where it's pushing me and nudging me is to do this show and to pursue other aspects of hobbies and things that I'm into, like acting.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
I absolutely.
yeah.
And I think that there's also some, there's some deeper things that are there. And the reading that you just got would be a typical reading that you interpretation from a beginning I Ching practitioner. You'll
Okay,
see it, and it's very meaningful to you. Now, to me, there's some other stuff that's going on here,
okay. So, what do you see as someone who's done this for a while?
and you tell me whether it's accurate or not. One of the things that we mentioned before we started recording was that one of the reasons you were doing the podcast is so that you could become more comfortable speaking on camera, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I think that on a deeper level, this is talking about those concerns that you have of needing to be able to talk better, not being good enough, not being able enough, those normal internal kinds of doubts that we all have. And it's saying that those can get in your way in taking on this new enterprise. So there is a time where you might need to back up a little bit and do some self-evaluation and see where you are emotionally and intellectually about it. Pull back just a little bit to be able to see that. And then there's a time of repair. You want to get yourself internally, emotionally, and intellectually, in a place where you do this because you are loving your guests, not to satisfy your own ego.
Understood.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that map on? Does that feel like it's accurate?
I think my view of it is more accurate to the retreating and the repair, but
No, I'm sure it is on the large
on the
level.
large level, but I always think that whatever wisdom and advice someone shares with you, there's something to take from that and there's something to learn from that. So yes, it does resonate as well.
So yeah, so I would just say that in taking this on, my sense is what the I Ching is saying. This is true. The thing about the I Ching is that this is true of every endeavor that anybody takes on. That we always need to check internally, like, are we really suited for this endeavor? Is this really where we're going? But more, are we, are we, in good shape for it? Because a lot of people, I mean, I've been on 125 podcasts, and I'll tell you, some of the hosts, it's all about them. It's all about them, and I go away from it feeling unloved.
Oh no. Well, I hope you feel the love from here.
No, I feel the
Okay.
love. I feel the love. I feel the love. I absolutely do. But those folks haven't done the internal work that they needed to do before they decided they wanted to host a podcast. You just need to be in a place. What I find is that the guests that I have been on as a guest, the podcast, the ones that really authentically they look into me and they want to know about, and they just pulled my story. They pull it out of me because of their intense interest, because they've done their internal work, and they truly are in. They're not thinking about what they want to say next. They really want to hear more from me.
Yes.
And then when I'm a host, that's how I want to be. But that takes a certain amount of quelling of the ego and a certain amount of, cultivating that kind of compassion and authentic interest. Some people are suited for it. Anyway, always just keep that in mind. But this is the kind of self-therapy and self-examination that the I Ching presents on a grand level and on a detailed level and on a deep level. And so it is almost as if you are becoming your own psychotherapist with the supervisor.
The book.
The book.
Yes. Okay.
The book will say, maybe you should think about that a little differently.
Yes, yes. So, do you still practice the I Ching and Taoism today, and how do you incorporate that into your life currently?
Well, after practicing for a couple of years and asking the way that I practice and the way Master Neat taught me to practice was just get up in the morning, and throw the coins and ask the question, what do I need to know today?
What do I need to know
And
today?
just be open and just
Okay.
be open because you're in a learning stage. And so today you'll get retreat. Tomorrow you'll get calculated waiting. The next day you'll get punching through. And then you have to figure out, like, how does that fit into the day? And maybe you don't get it right away and you go through the day and go, oh, this is what it was talking about. But that kind of experiential learning is everybody can learn experientially. And it's an experiential learning. And over time, you embody those times. And so you get this little antenna, and the difference that it makes is like I got a really great idea and I want to tell everybody about it. And I'm really excited about it. And I go to my friends and, like I meet with a group of men every Monday morning, and I want to tell them about it. And I see that, they're not really into it. Well, my antenna goes off, it goes, this isn't the time. It's not that they don't care about me. There might be another time, there will be another time when they're open and they may turn to me and say, now, what was that you wanted to tell us about? Then it's the time. But if I force myself and I use a lot of energy to try to force them to listen, they ain't going to listen anyway. I've used a lot of energy and I have accomplished nothing. Whereas if I
Mm.
just pulled back, because it wasn't the time, so that was a time of no progress. That was a time of no listening. And so, okay, that's the time. You just accept it. It's not personal and you wait. And in the meantime, you use the time to refine your presentation. You might even think about it. That wasn't such a great idea after all. Maybe you decide you don't even want to share it to them after the excitement goes. But maybe you do. And then you refined it a little bit and say, well, it's better to say it this way. Or, here's another little facet I didn't think about. So now when they turn and they say, what was it you wanted to say? Now you give them a better presentation that's more thought through. So you're using less energy and getting a better result.
No, sometimes in life, like in athletic endeavors or well, you played football. Like you have to
Mhm.
push through in order to score the
Yes.
touchdown or
Yes.
achieve your goal.
Yeah.
Does that still fit in with just
Well,
going with
there's
the
a time
flow?
to push through.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
There
that makes sense.
there's a time to push there's a time to punch through. I mean, there's actually is one of the 64 hexagram is punching through, where, you've been working at something, and you just haven't been able to make any progress, and the only thing you can do is take a battering ram and punch through the wall. It's the only way you're gonna get through. Sometimes you gotta do that,
Okay. That makes
right?
sense. Yeah.
Sometimes, and sometimes, you can sit back and rest and relax and recharge. Yeah, there's a time for it. Somebody once asked me, they were very upset about the word retreat. They said, well, retreat means giving up. And I said, you just don't understand retreat if that's what you think. Because if you retreat only to give up, you missed the time to retreat. You missed it because the time to retreat was when you could have pulled back and regenerated and reformed to come forward again, but you missed it. And now the consequences of missing the right time to retreat are that you're destroyed because you've used all your energy when you needed to recharge.
Okay. So being too late.
Being too late, being too early. And how do you know the time? Well, for those that practice, we sense it. I mean, it happens with me and my wife. She's very type A, and she is a very list oriented person. And for her, if it's on my list, it's got to get done. It's got to get done today. So she says, I need you to help me do this. And I go, nah, it's not the time. And she goes, what do you mean it's not the time? I said, I just don't feel like, this is the time to do that. And she goes, right. And she goes off and does something else and something else. And then a day later, something occurs which makes the whole task irrelevant and we don't have to do it at all. And then she looks at me, she goes, I hate you. I hate you when you do that. I have a very, I have a not good, I have a well-trained sense of timing. The sense of timing is something that is trainable, and this is the way to train it.
Okay. So in the morning, do the process and then read and see what resonates with you, go with that wisdom, and then keep learning like
And
that
do it again the
and
next
again
morning
and
and
again
again.
and again. Okay.
It's just like when I teach meditation, because I do teach meditation. Everybody thinks meditation is about quieting the mind and finding peace and tranquility and la and tree hugging and kumbaya, and it's not. Meditation is about learning what it feels like to wake up from your default blah, blah, blah that goes on in your mind and learning what being awake feels like, because most of the time we're not awake. So we help people learn to notice when their mind's going blah, 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 because your mind goes blah, blah all the time. But noticing your mind doing the blah, blah, blah is different than it just happening. So watching your mind go crazy is part of meditation. It's not quieting the mind. And then waking up from that. But where the real healing in meditation happens is failing to, you say, I'm going to put my attention on this candle. And my mind goes nuts. But at some point, my mind goes, hey, you're not paying attention to the candle. And so you think, I failed. Okay. But then you go, okay. So now the job is to come back and put your attention back on the candle. And you begin again. You start over again. Just like, okay, let me form an intention now to put my attention on the candle and I'm going to watch the candle. Then my mind goes off again. And I notice it and I come back. Oh, I failed again. Start over. Start over. Start over. Start over. And so, if you sit for 10 minutes, you might start over 15 times. Okay. Next time you'll start over 15 times. What you're doing here is you're not learning how to focus or concentrate. You're learning how to be resilient. You're learning how to accept failure and start over again. You're learning that you have the ability to come back up once you get knocked down. You're becoming stronger of mind, and you're learning to tolerate discomfort.
Yeah, I
That's
think
what meditation's about. It's not about being painless. It's about tolerating the pain that's there.
yeah, I think with meditation, sort of like with a lot of other things we do in life, we know there's a starting point, and then once you get to blank level, that's when you've arrived, or that's
Mhm.
with meditation, it's harder to define those goalposts.
I don't know.
Like, when do you know when do you know, like, "Okay, I'm doing meditation well. I'm not a beginner anymore."
Well, let me put it to you this way. Let's say that you decide you want to travel, okay? And you want to see the world. Well, you're never going to see the world, right? But like, are those goals hard to define? What happens is you go to London and you enjoy London. Then you go to Paris and you enjoy Paris. And that was that trip, and this is this trip, and then you're going to take the next trip. It's kind of like that. Just the other day, I had one woman in my class who started out terribly anxious. Terribly anxious. She would, her father had died 2 months ago and she was still grieving. That made her more anxious. And we, started out doing a breath awareness, like just paying attention to your breath. And she goes, I don't even feel like I can make my chest move. It feels like I don't have any place to breathe in. I said, okay, well, thank you. That's great. You're noticing that. You're noticing what it feels like. That's all right. Just write down what you noticed, and tomorrow you do it again. And tomorrow do it again. Tomorrow do it again. And all of a sudden she stopped with that because that didn't bother her anymore, because she got bored of it. And that's what happens. We get bored of our complaints after we complain again and again and again, and then they go away. They can't make them go away, but they go away when we get bored of them. And then we're 3 weeks into the class now, and there's a meditation called Gatha where you repeat it. There are all kinds of different meditations. This particular meditation, you say, breathing in, I know I'm breathing out. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Breathing in, I calm my body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. And then you repeat these little phrases. And that's a really good meditation for people who have a lot of trouble sitting and paying attention to their breath. So she says to me in her log, because my students log every day, and I get their logs every day, and I read their logs every day, and I send them back responses every day. So it's not like you talk to your teacher once and then come back 2 weeks later. It's every single day coaching. And it's not 10 minutes, 12 minutes, paragraph. We're not talking about a lot. But anyway, I get a log from her, and in the log she says, I really like doing Gatha, and it's really better for me to be able to repeat these things. But every time I come to that thing where it says I calm my body and my mind, I know that I'm not going to be able to calm my body and my mind, and I get really anxious about the fact that I won't be able to calm my body and my mind. And then when I have to say that I'm calming my body and my mind, I know that I'm not calming my body and my mind, and it really makes me a lot of anxious. But on the next line, when I'm breathing out and I say I smile, I feel like I'm not very anxious. Okay. So this led us into a conversation about how even having the desire not to be anxious is anxiety producing. Trying to make your anxiety goes away creates more anxiety. But allowing it, and see, breathing out, I smile, she simply allowed her anxiety to go away. And I know that my describing it it doesn't have the same effect as her experience of it. But after she experienced it, and then we talked about it, and I pointed out to her what she did, she got it. And since then, she just moved to a whole new level of freedom. And this is what the most recent log says. I can't believe I'm 67 years old and I really never understood what it means to be free. How cool is that?
It sounds like she achieved levels during this meditation class.
Just this idea of being free from the chatter. But it doesn't come from trying to be free from the chatter. It comes from paying attention to the chatter, which seems so counterintuitive, but it's just how it works.
Noticing your thoughts as they pop up and they come into your awareness.
Yeah, and go from your awareness, because they always do. Thought comes up, it's here, and it's gone. Then another one replaces it, then another one replaces it, and you can't do anything with them. I mean, Alex, I couldn't pay your rent with my thoughts. You can't buy a bottle of booze or a beer with your thoughts. They have no value in and of themselves other than the fact that they drive you nuts.
So how long are your meditation classes? So it's a group of students all sitting together in one room? How does it work?
No, we're virtual. We're
Virtual, okay.
online. So the basic meditation class is 5 weeks. You meet with me with the group or individually, whichever way you want. Of course, it's more expensive individual. Group's a lot cheaper. You meet with me 1.5 hours a week, and we talk about obstacles and what time of day. And, the group just offers its wisdom, and people say, what's difficult, what's working. And then I'll teach. Maybe this week I'll teach body scan, breath awareness, and walking meditation. So then I give them an app that's proprietary, which is specially just for this. And all of the meditations are on the app. They're guided meditations. And they make a commitment to practice 10 minutes a day. And as soon as they practice, they select it on the app. I want to do walking meditation. It's guided. As soon as it's done, they log their response. I like this because it was good, and I really felt the sensations in my feet, but my mind wandered. And since I was outside, I found that I was paying more attention to the trees than I was to my feet, they might say. And I get that, and then I'll respond and say, maybe the idea was to pay attention to your feet and your mind wandered and you were paying attention to the trees, but wasn't that a lot of fun? It wasn't that great. And you weren't paying attention to the past and you weren't catastrophizing about the future. You were noticing the trees. What's the complaint? And they learn how this process simply grounds you in this present moment and demystifies this idea of being in the present moment.
So for you personally, what's your meditation practice look like these days?
Well, I get up at 4 a.m. and I meditate. Actually, I sit down and I do something else for a while. Like I'll answer logs. That's what I usually do first, and get up and answer logs. Then I sit for about 30 minutes, around about 30 minutes. And I don't sit cross-legged on a cushion. I sit in my easy chair. And sometimes I'm just contemplating stuff, and sometimes I'm doing a specific meditation like breath awareness. And then there's a meditation called open awareness that, is a little bit more advanced. And I'll sit for 30 minutes, and then I'll do some busy work, my emails, and take care of stuff and projects and things like that. And then exactly at 6 o'clock, my 2 dogs will come and they will say, it is time for us to go for a walk. And I take them out at the walk and I walk over to the elementary school. Actually, it's right about 10 minutes before sunrise, whenever sunrise is. And there's a bench that we go to, and I sit on the bench and I always watch the sun come up.
Every day?
Well, not if it's raining.
Okay.
But that's what I do. And if I'm traveling, I find out where I can go to watch the sun come up, and I just watch the sun. And I have a certain thing that I say to myself, which a little conversation I have with myself, which goes something like this. Well, Bob, it's a new day. And you know what? You're going to trade a day of your life for this day. So it's really important, because I don't have that many days left. And all that's going to be left after this day is done, the only thing that's going to be there is whatever I leave in it. So for God's sake, let it be something good. And then I gather up my dogs and I gather up myself and walk on home.
You got really emotional when you realize there's just this one more day that you have left. When in life did you come across that realization that every day is important?
I don't know.
Or what were you thinking about
That's
just now?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think that it has to do, it's my way of coping with the incredible amount of suffering there exists in the world. I don't turn away, from pictures of the starving kids in Gaza. I don't not watch the news. I feel I need to be engaged and aware and awake and vocal about those things. It takes a toll on you. And I think that's my cathartic way of setting myself back into balance at the beginning of the day.
Well, that's amazing. Well, Bob, this conversation has just been I've just learned so much just from talking to you these couple minutes. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your time and your energy and your stories with me. I feel like there's so much more I want to ask and
Well,
learn
we
from
can
you.
do it again. We
Yeah,
can do it
yeah.
again.
But how can listeners get in touch with you?
Mhm.
Where are you? How can they find you?
Everything is at awiseandhappylife.com.
Okay.
awiseandhappylife.com. There are a lot of free stuff. There's a downloadable introduction to meditation book that you can get. There is 25 tips on reducing stress book that you can get. And there's over 300 instructional booklets about how to do breath awareness or walking meditation, or how to evaluate, whether you're right for your romance or for your career. So there's over 300 of those, and just started videotaping some guided meditations. I just did a loving kindness meditation and a compassion meditation. These are things to cultivate those things. The Eastern psychology is based on this concept that there are certain things that make us unhappy. And those is wanting, not wanting, and being ignorant. Those are the things that I want something I don't have. I want that house. I don't have that. I want this car. I want this. I don't want to grow old. I don't want that person. I don't like that person. He annoys me. These are all the things that make us unhappy. And they're called the three poisonous roots. And the antidote to being unhappy is to cultivate happiness. And that's through the three sweet fruits, which is loving kindness, generosity, and wisdom. So that's what meditation really does. It helps you to cultivate the three antidotes to the things that make you unhappy.
Well, in our short time here, I've definitely felt that loving, that kindness, and that wisdom from you. So I appreciate you sharing that with me and the listeners.
My pleasure. Anytime.
And I hope to see you again on soon. All right. Thanks, Bob.